You can see on game day, he has the same look on his face that I used to as a player on game day. So yeah, you can tell he really enjoys it, and it's not work if you enjoy it that much, and that's what I see from Eric.
You do this, you love doing it. Like for example, I didn't do sidelines until a couple years ago. Now it's one of the most fun things I've done in a very lucky career. But again, I think you have to have the love for the game.
I always think of him as like a Cadillac. You know, he's real smooth and he's just easygoing. He doesn't get real worked up over stuff.
I would definitely say that he is a Cadillac. Yes, I never thought of it that way, but it is a perfect description.
He's really important. I mean, it is one of those jobs that you just don't walk in off the street and do, and he can do it.
10 seconds to the billboard, stand by, and you're in.
Well, I know it's August because it's the fourth
No,
preseason game.
I'm a guy from nowhere in Cedarville, Washington, and who's ever heard of that place? And to get to do these things and to get paid to go around the country and be in these amazing stadiums and get paid to do it, that's pretty cool.
I'm Caitlin Hedersheet. On this week's NCWLIFE Magazine, I'm taking you behind the scenes at CenturyLink Field with our very own Eric Granstrom. You've seen Eric every night on our evening news, behind the mic at all of our live sporting events, and keeping the machine running here at the NCWLIFE channel as the program director. What you may not know is that he's achieving one of his greatest dreams as a small-town broadcaster, producing the Seahawks Radio Network live from the press box during the preseason for almost 20 years. On this episode, we'll hear from the legends working alongside him, from Steve Rabel to John Clayton, Jen Mueller, and more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the NCWLIFE Magazine. As the sports director at NCWLIFE, it's obvious Eric Granstrom has a passion for all things sports. But where does this passion come from?
Well, when I was a kid, O.J. Simpson was the big thing for me, and so I had a number 32 jersey, and I'd put on pads and helmet, and I'd go out in the yard and play football games by myself. But I would do the play-by-play of my own game. So Eric's back to pass, he throws it to Eric, and all this kind of stuff. Or I'd, pretend that I'm one of the Seahawks or, one of my favorite players. And so that's originally what I wanted to do was play professional football. We didn't have all the money in the world, and so my ticket to the games, to my favorite teams, was the radio. And when it was the Seahawks, it was Pete Gross, and when it was the Mariners, it was Dave Niehaus, and when it was the Sonics, it was Bob Blackburn. And I'd listen to these guys, and I was just fascinated how I could close my eyes and I could see the game. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. I want to know how to do that. And so I didn't realize all of that until I got into broadcasting and I got into radio and I started doing play-by-play myself. And I went, oh, okay, it all makes sense now.
If you talk with Eric about his upbringing, you'll learn he's proud of his small-town roots. Eric's dad worked as a logger and commercial fisherman, but prioritized education and the use of language.
That started with my dad when I was a kid. We had Reader's Digest, and he made sure I did the word power on Reader's Digest. Every time we got the Reader's Digest, he would grill me on the word power. And so that helped me develop an interest in language and how words come to be, what they mean. And so I've always just had an interest in words. And I think also the thing that formulated my want to be able to describe things was listening to the radio.
He'll tell you honestly that it was a lack of skill set and a neck injury that sidelined his dreams of continuing to participate in sports on a professional level. So Eric went off to broadcast technical school to fulfill his radio dreams. Eventually finding himself in the Wenatchee Valley at KPQ, he spent some time behind the mic and began setting his sights on how to reach further.
I had developed an on-air friendship with the guy who was the Seahawks play-by-play voice at the time, Brian Davis. And I got a chance to meet him. In 2000, they were moving out of the Kingdome and building the new stadium, and they were at Husky Stadium for a short time. And that's really when I got to meet the whole broadcast crew, because I asked Brian and talked to Brian O'Connell, who's the director of broadcasting, and I said, I'd like to do a story of behind the scenes of, we listen to you guys every Sunday. I'd like to know how that works. And I think our listeners would like to know how that works. So that's really how it began. And then the friendship I had professionally and personally with Brian Davis continued. And I told him once, I said, I want your job. How do I get it? And he was kind of, well, that's rather direct. But he told me too that he wouldn't be where he was had it not been for who he knew, not what he knew. And within 6 months, I got a call saying, hey, you need to get to Cairo in Seattle. They're looking for a producer of Seahawks Radio, and we put your name in the hat. And so whirlwind later, suddenly I'm standing in Cheney. I'm officially hired by Cairo Radio, where all of my heroes I'd listened to on the radio, Dave Niehaus and all these guys, had worked. And now I'm actually working there, which was unfathomable for me. And I had to take my fan hat off of being this Seahawks fan since I could remember when they started in 1976. And I'm now working and a professional, and it was so hard because I just want to grab a football and get a pen and go have, Mike Holmgren sign my ball and things like that. But, I was professional about it. And the head eventually, I think, stopped spinning maybe 2 years ago.
The only description that comes close to describing what it is Eric does for the Seahawks Radio Network is air traffic controller. As a listener on the radio or a viewer for TV broadcasts, it's easy to forget how much might be going on in the background to bring you your programming, but it's very much like a beehive on big productions. From the commentators on the field to inside the press box and all the tech gurus helping bring quality content to your ears, Eric is listening to it all and keeping the show on track. For every broadcast, Steve Rabel says it takes a close team.
Well, it's great. I mean, I've been a part of a team all my life, starting with grade school football and through high school and college, and then here with the Seahawks, and then with the broadcast team. And amazingly, we've had a pretty stable group over all these years. I've got to work with some of the best football players on the planet. Warren Moon, Hall of Fame quarterback. Now Dave Wyman has stepped in for the time being as the analyst as well. I get to work with great technical people. The producer, he and I have worked together 20 years. Eric and I have worked together during preseason for 15, 17 years, something like that. So these are the kinds of jobs that people like doing. They don't want to give them up. Eric is a great example. He will drive over from Eastern Washington to come over here and do this game. I remember last year all of the terrible wildfires going on in Eastern Washington, and I know you guys were covering them on a daily basis. And I would ask him, how was the drive over? And he said, man, it was smoke all the way till we got through the pass, and then it finally started to clear. That's dedication to come over and want to do that for 4 preseason games. But he's really important. I mean, it is one of those jobs that you just don't walk in off the street and do, and he can do it. So why change? We all get along. We all work together very well. So it's been a great kind of marriage that way, and all of us in that booth enjoy each other's company. When we're on the road, we'll enjoy a libation before the game, the day before, and we look forward to football season. I think that's a really important thing.
Lloyd Glazer, an engineer for the Seahawks Radio Network, explains what the broadcast looks like from behind the scenes.
We'll have 4 minutes on the other side.
In this setup here, we have a talkback system, and his job is to tell these guys what to do. They're in charge of the content of what's going on in the field. He's in charge of what's going on behind the scenes, okay? So I've recorded a whole bunch of stuff. One of these days I'm going to edit it all together, and it'll be like a track, the talking track of what actually happens during the broadcast. So, and there's a lot of screaming. It's quiet though, because you don't want it to get on air. But I mean, that's just part of the show, and everybody understands that. Eric's not a screamer. He's a calm talker, I work with a lot of different producers, and they're all different. Just like the guys that you see on the broadcast, on television, or on radio when you listen to them. Everybody's personality is different, and with him, it's just he's constantly telling them when to go to break, when there's a timeout, when there's a holdout, layout for a ref call, all that kind of stuff. He might be spotting, which means he's telling Steve, he'll point at a piece of paper with a number on it, helping Steve, say who the player is that just made the tackle or something. So he's doing like 3 or 4 different things at the same time.
You have to understand that even though there's a lot of time for fans to watch a game at home, every time there's a break in the action, we are working, and we are working very quickly in very short time frames. So there's a lot going on when a play is happening, but it's in between plays that Eric and I are actually talking. Sometimes that's only 10 to 15 seconds. Sometimes it's 30 seconds during a commercial break. But you have to know when to pop in and have the conversation, because there's also other people that need instructions from him and cueing and all sorts of things. And so it's really time sensitive when we have these conversations. We say a lot without talking a lot, if that makes any sense. And so being on the same page, which it always feels like I am with Eric, is really critical for our jobs.
Our full-time producer during the regular season is a gentleman named Brian O'Connell, and we've been together 20 years. And you get used to that sense. I hear him in my ear. And, Eric's the same way. I mean, he'll give me so-and-so made the tackle. Because I can't see everything, especially with 90 guys. But it's really important. And then to be able to trust that you're getting the right information. That's a big deal, too. So, hey, we're a team. We love it.
Well, I think, particularly in a broadcast like this, I mean, I know Brian O'Connell can do it. I know Eric can do it. I think, you get the best of the best. And I think that, anybody in that role, one, you got to know the game of football. Eric knows the game of football, and that helps because then it starts to get directions and different things. And certainly for Steve Rabel, it gets him the information quicker where he's going to be able to say, okay, it looks like a penalty is going to be against this team, that team, and here's who it's going to go against.
From conversations and observations of all the team members for the broadcast at the game that rainy night, I learned how honored and proud they each feel about the work they're doing and the caliber of the level they're at. Lloyd says this crew is unmatched in the NFL.
I just think we do one of the best jobs in the league. I mean, you don't get any higher than this, So I think we've all gotten to this place because we are pretty exceptional at what we do, and we're all pretty experienced at doing it, Yeah, so I think we're probably one of the better crews in the league, and that's 32 teams, 32 broadcasts. Seahawks do a pretty good job of producing the show, overall. So their support is amazing, and it just helps us, and so we work hard, and we have fun.
Coming up next, we'll hear more from the team of the Seahawks Radio Network and learn more about Eric Granstrom's philosophy on the job. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the NCWLIFE Magazine. Behind the scenes at CenturyLink Field is a dizzying experience. Between the media, the fans, and the football players who look larger than life, it takes a specific type of person to find calm in the chaos. In talking with those who work closely with the broadcast, they described Eric as just that. Here's former Seahawks player and coach Paul Moyer.
The great thing about Eric is he relaxes you. At the very beginning, he's not tense. There's producers at times where they'll yell in your ear or you got to get out. Eric's very calm, and he'll crack a few jokes every once in a while to loosen you up as well. It's a great relationship with him.
Okay, keep talking.
Yeah, Steve. I brought the A-team in, feel good about it. Got 20, 30 jokes ready to go.
Great.
Yep.
Great. It should be the longest 3.5 hours of my life.
Yeah,
The voice in your ear is like the best voice I've ever heard. I'm like, hey, he should be doing this broadcast. He's got a great on-air voice, but more than anything for him, it's kind of a calming quality that he has that, and he'll say, have fun and things like that. It kind of brings it back around for you to, try to connect with listeners and try to be comfortable and try to have fun, because if you have fun and you're comfortable, they're going to be comfortable, they're going to have
Wear
fun.
Those different
You're
hats.
saying more of an expert than those other two. I got it. I'm with you.
You can't work in football and not think that it's fun, right? I mean, it is fun. And so we have our little inside jokes. And for as much as we're communicating about the game, there's little things that we pop in on and we laugh just between the two of us that nobody else can hear during the game, and it is fun and it is good. And you can tell in his voice, it's not just calm, but there's a smile there. You know that he enjoys what he does, and it helps to feed the rest of us.
So this really could be the longest night of my life.
It could very well be.
Yeah, great.
God, it feels good here, though. It's dry.
You know what,
Hey, can you guys
Paul Moyer?
coffee, little tea, warm tea?
Does he still need to come up, or am I
Moyer's
just
quickly
not
getting on
hearing
my
him very
bad
well?
side.
Is he okay?
I liked you
Okay.
right up until today.
All right.
I mean, I went to Alaska to fish commercially on my dad's boat when I was 11 years old. So I had to grow up fast. And that's a crazy environment. And you can't panic. You can't take it all in and just freak out. I mean, you have a job to do. And so I think that really is where all that started, is that, hey, it's, we still have to keep focus. And for someone who's kind of the air traffic controller of what's going on is kind of how I see my job. I gotta keep my head about me when everybody else is losing theirs. And so there has to be a voice of calm, there has to be a voice of reason, and if I can fill that space, then okay, I've done my job.
I just know that Eric is really important to what we do in the preseason, and I wouldn't want anybody else there doing that. To me, it means football season is getting ready to start. When I walk in here, first preseason game, and there's Eric standing there, it just tells me that, okay, now we're ready to go. Now we can get on with what we have to do, and that part makes it fun.
It's a team. Where you're covering and you're watching a team like the Seahawks, it's a team in the broadcast booth. And the one thing, like Eric is able to roll with the punches so well. Like last week, the color analyst was a comedian. We got through that and it went very well. And of course, sometimes you don't know where the issues are going to be on the field and what's going to happen. But Eric does a good job because he's never panicked. He always seems to know what the right thing to do is at the right time.
Okay, Jen and John, you ready to go?
I'm ready. As ready as I'm going to be.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Actually, give me 2 for starting.
Okay, yep. 60 seconds. I'm sorry.
How much total time in the segment?
We'll have 4 minutes.
Where does that come from? I don't know. I guess I always thought that radio should be fun. And when I got into radio, I tried to have as much fun as I possibly could. Maybe too much fun at sometimes, but I could play radio a little bit, and that's what I've always said. I've never worked in radio, I've always played radio. And so if it's here doing Seahawks games or anywhere else, I mean, hey, we get to do this, we get to have fun, we get to describe something that people can't see. How fun is that?
For Dave Wyman, he says Eric provides the coaching he needs on the job.
Just advice. He was always so willing to give advice and coach me up. And being an ex-player, I like being coached, and Eric always was really good at it. Funny story, I was doing the sidelines one time, and it was in 2004, it was my first year, and I had to go into the locker room and do interviews afterwards, and I did not want to. Because once as a player, I feel like that's kind of a sacred place. And so it was after a loss, and so I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. And he's like, get in there, get some interviews. He wasn't screaming at me, but it was just, it was good coaching. The stuff that I've always gotten from Eric, and there's not a lot of people in this business that are really willing to help you, and he was a guy, and he's a producer, so he always said, look, I'm here to make you look good. So, and he always did, as much as you can with me anyway.
For Eric, he says it takes passion and putting your nose to the grind to find success at what you love. At the end of the day, working in radio means you're thinking about each individual listener.
Just our day to day is kind of a slice of what it's like. It's it's amazing, it's fun. It's really hard though. I mean, because we got here at 3 o'clock today, and it's 11 o'clock now, and we're still working. A lot of people say, yeah, whatever, work. But yeah, I mean, it's stressful because we've got 67 radio stations on the Seahawks Radio Network that are depending on us to get it right. And so if I think about that, that's a little much. So what I try to, and goes back to my radio theories too about when I was on the radio, I'm talking to one person. And I'm talking with you, not at you. And so I take that philosophy with me pretty much with everything I do, whether it's TV, working in NCWLIFE, or here doing these things, is that we're really just trying to reach one person. I mean, there might be millions of ones, but it's still just one. And I think that's where you have to start and where you have to finish.
In spending time with a variety of locals and organizations for the NCWLIFE Magazine, I've learned that every great adventure comes with a leap of faith. For Eric, he says this leap is exactly what brought his dreams to reality.
It's hard because, they say to follow your passion, but your passion isn't going to pay the bills. I've been fortunate enough that I found a niche early on, in my career when I broke my neck playing football, so that was done. I wasn't going to be a teacher. That was not for me, but I could talk on this microphone thing. And so I took a leap of faith and went to broadcast school and took a leap of faith and took an internship earlier than anybody ever had. And then I, had a job 2 months before I graduated. So never say no. Always be open to that opportunity. Even if you hadn't even considered it, like producing the Seahawks radio broadcast. I don't even know what that is. Back in 2000 when I first heard about it, and then 2003 when they offered me the job. But I think the biggest advice is just be bold. Sometimes it's crazy, but it can work out pretty cool. And if you don't even give yourself the shot, you're never gonna find out. And I think that, everybody says you gotta go to college, everybody says you gotta do this and that. And there are roads definitely that can make it easier, but sometimes it's just about being bold and making a stab. And when I told Brian Davis I want your job, after I decided that I wasn't gonna play professional football, but if I could be around it, if I could call it, if I could be the voice of the Seahawks or something like that, then okay, why not? And so I did at the age of 30, and you're 17, well, now I'm 50, so it's 20 years later, still involved in it. So what's important is that I took the opportunity to do this, but I was also given the opportunity to do this. That didn't have to happen. My first bosses at KPQ back in the day, they gave me a leave of absence. They said, hey, your job's back here if you want it. If it doesn't work out, but go for it. They said that their job was to grow their people. And if their people advanced to do other things beyond where they were, then they'd done their job. And I've tried to also live by that credo a little bit too. Working with the NCWLIFE channel, working on radio and things like that. And I've had, people that have come up under me that have gone on to do some pretty cool things. And so, hey, I did my job. So I wouldn't be here if I wasn't given the opportunity. Yeah, I took the opportunity, but I also was given that opportunity. And I had something to fall back on. And so for me, that's very important. And everywhere I go, I always call my dad. And I tell him, okay, here's where I'm at today. And that doesn't matter if I'm in Wenatchee doing a live broadcast at a fish store, or if I'm doing the Seahawks in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. Family is very important to me, and I think that part of this journey for me is taking my family with me everywhere I go.
That wraps up this episode of the NCWLIFE Magazine. To view this episode or other episodes on demand, visit ncwlife.com and navigate to the Watch Now tab, where you'll find all of our programming on demand. I'm Caitlin Hedersheet. Thanks for watching. This is Caitlin Hedersheet, the producer of the NCWLIFE Magazine. Each week, I'm bringing you a look behind the scenes of the faces, places, and events that make North Central Washington the place we call home. Tune in every weekday for an in-depth look at a new topic each week. From local artists in their studios to businesses breaking barriers that might surprise you, and everything in between. Join me on the NCWLIFE Magazine right here on the NCWLIFE channel.